You've been having
I'm on the English Channel.
Right, quick out. Now stop. We've got a bit of a delay, so you have to wait for me to finish the question, and I'll wait for you. Just to clarify, you are on a boat in the English Channel. Let's play when we get that line up. Let's play a quick video of what you have been doing today.
The government announced yesterday they had a new deal with France supposed to stop boats crossing the Channel, so I thought I'd come out here and see what's going on. I'm on the English Channel, probably about 7 or 8 miles off Calais, and behind me you can see a French warship, and just next to it is a dinghy full of illegal immigrants. The French making absolutely no attempt whatsoever to stop it. They've been shadowing it for the last 3 hours. It's about 2 hours from British waters. They're going to be arriving in the UK later on today, so quite clearly the government's claims to be fixing this with their new deal are not working. The evidence is right behind me.
Well, very vivid imagery there. Chris, oh gosh, now we've just lost Chris Philp's line. Yeah, not such good lines out. We had this many years back. We had a reporter out there. It turns out, yeah, really bad line. Chris Philp, while we get him on the line, Claire Pistol is here, former Conservative Government advisor in the Home Office. You were there when he was actually Home Office Minister, were you not?
No, I was before him.
That was before that time. I mean, I think it's about, he's out on that boat, all credit to him. Oh, we're going to try and get that signal back. I'm so sorry, guys. I can remember Nigel Farage doing that. Yeah. I can remember other media organisations doing it. It's interesting. The BBC just, suddenly discovered there are smuggling gangs, and they've been covering it. Who knew? And apparently not a good thing. Who knew? But I mean, it is important that we kind of lay bare exactly what is happening, and our politicians are aware of what is happening. When you've got boatloads of men of fighting age crossing the Channel, being escorted by our Navy.
The thing is, you don't need to go out into the middle of the Channel to understand that. Politicians need to get themselves down to the communities of Dover, Deal, maybe along to Hastings, because they see people coming off of these boats, running up beaches, free to do as they wish. So I think you just go and speak to those communities, go and speak to those people and understand what that does to those communities and how they feel. But it isn't very far. I've stood on a beach in Calais. I have looked across at the sparkly lights of Dover. It doesn't look very far, and when the water is calm, it looks very, very easy indeed.
And we often talk about people taking this dangerous route and how they should be put off, but actually an awful lot of people, we understand, I mean, having spoken to people working in this field, that actually they do think it's actually a much easier route than it really is. But you don't even have to go down to Deal or Dover. I mean, that's what Nigel Farage did, the Reform leader, some years ago, and exposed this. And of course, he was far right then. Now, I mean, Chris Philp is pretty solid on this stuff, but nevertheless worked in a government where they failed abjectly to do anything about this. And we had Robert Jenrick, his now colleague, Shadow Justice Secretary. He resigned from the Home Office as an immigration minister over the Rwanda deal. A lot of people said, was that political posturing, setting himself up after election and for a role or not? But there is this concern that actually the Tories are talking a great game now, criticising Labour Party, but they did some zero of nothing when this problem was happening on their watch.
It's all very easy when you're in opposition to point fingers at the government and say you're not doing a very good job, which Labour are now finding out that they're in power and they have to make some difficult decisions. Immigration is always going to be one of those subjects which is uncomfortable, difficult, expensive.
Why is it? I don't understand. I've never been afflicted by this need to be liked. I know this is old-fashioned, but I mean this. I don't mean like you should go around being a nasty person, but I don't think you should change what you think and what you do because someone thinks that. If you believe it, if you've done your research, you've got the facts on your side, or you believe what you're doing is the moral right thing. Then I think you should. I think you should. Oh, we've just got Chris Philp, the Shadow Home Secretary, back on the phone rather than on a Zoom. Hopefully that signal will hold. Good afternoon once again to you, Chris. Tell us a bit more about what you've been doing today.
Julia, good afternoon. Well, I've been out on the Channel this morning since about 7 o'clock to see if the government's new migration deal with France is working. They signed it yesterday and claimed this would fix the problems. But the evidence that I've seen today is that it's made no difference whatsoever. Within just half an hour, we found 2 boatloads of illegal immigrants crossing the Channel. They were being ushered across, escorted across by French boats. The French boats made no attempt at all to stop them near French shores. They ushered them into the quite dangerous shipping lanes. where a container ship had to divert course to avoid hitting one of those boats. Border Force came out and picked up the 2 boatloads of illegal immigrants.
Yep.
And then, to add insult to injury, the French collected the life jackets so they could then use them again, facilitating even more crossings. The lesson really, and I've actually recorded the radio conversation, which I've just put on Twitter, the radio conversation on the ship radio between the French commander and the UK commander, when the French guy had brazen cheek to ask for life jackets, and he wanted to make sure all 60 got returned. So what this...
you can have the life jackets back, but you're going to have a migrant in each of them.
That is exactly what's happening. The French are essentially facilitating the migration over the Channel. And what is clear is that the government deal they announced yesterday with such fanfare, claiming it would have a deterrent effect, is in fact having no deterrent effect.
Realistically, come on, Chris Philp. Realistically, no one expected to have an impact straight away. It hasn't even started working. With all due respect, the Rwanda deal didn't have any deterrent effect either, did it?
Well, the Rwanda deal, of course, never started because it was due to start after all the legal challenges. It was due to start at the end of July last year.
That was Rishi Sunak's choice not to hold an election before that. That was a deliberate policy choice.
Well, I don't know about deliberate, but it was certainly a mistake. But that scheme was ready to start at the end of July of last year, but Keir Starmer cancelled it just a few weeks, 2 or 3 weeks before it was due to start. Now, that Rwanda scheme would have seen 100% of illegal migrants who arrive getting sent to...
No, it wouldn't. No, that's not true. That's not true. It's going to be a few hundred people and then possibly one day upscaling it. But there were no plans in Rwanda to receive every single person who arrived on the boats. That's simply not true.
Well, 2 points, Julia. The first point is that there was not a cap on that scheme. And the second point, perhaps more importantly, is you've only got to return 100% of arrivals for 1 or 2 months, or maybe at the most 3 months, and people will just stop trying. And I know that because, well, first of all, common sense tells you that. But secondly, when Australia did this about 12 years ago, they were having about 50,000 people a year crossing, so actually slightly more than we're seeing now. And they only had to return the arrivals to a little island called Nauru for about 3 months. And then they just stopped crossing entirely because... Why bother crossing if you know you're 100% sure?
Oh, yeah, I mean, it wouldn't. That's the whole point. It wouldn't be a long-term scheme. Look, a lot of people have got a lot of questions about this return scheme. Anyway, the 1 in, 1 out, and it's not 1 in, 1 out. It's going to be 800 in, 50 out. We're going to take another 50. We're going to have all of their relatives. Have you managed to work out who's going to assess whether these supposedly legitimate, genuine asylum seekers currently in France, who bizarrely France don't want, on what basis they will be assessed as both safe to come to this country and on what basis they'll be allowed to come to our country because they've got a link here, other than they've got a second cousin living in Leicester?
Yeah, well, in my view, it's going to be impossible to work out whether they're safe to bring in, because Article 16 of the agreement yesterday says that the French will not give any personal data to the UK government about the migrants being sent to the UK. So we've got no idea.
Hold on a minute. I thought the bare minimum was that the British government would be vetting these people.
Well, they claim they're going to do that, but on the basis of what information? Because the French are not going to provide any information at all. So if, for example, the UK has a criminal record in France, or they're suspected by the French government of being a terrorist or an extremist, the French government will not provide that information to the UK government. All the UK government will have to go on is what the migrant tells the UK government. And obviously, if they are a criminal or an extremist, they're not going to disclose that. So there is no real safeguard at all, because the French, it says in black and white, Article 16, the French government will not provide any information about, any personal information about the migrants being sent to the UK.
That is extraordinary, isn't it? Although I don't know why I'd be surprised. But we also know there's this massive, big human rights loophole, massive, big hole cut with neon lights saying, come here, try this, that will prevent us from actually putting any of those supposedly 50-a-week migrants on the train, the plane, the boat or whatever to go back to France. And this is because if they've got any outstanding human rights claims, any other legal challenges, or they claim they're under 18, despite having a receding hairline, that they can basically stop it in its tracks. Surely every single person who gets put on the detainee list for, we're going to detain you because we're going to try and deport you, they immediately start a legal challenge, don't they?
Precisely, Julia. You've hit the nail on the head. They'll firstly claim to be under 18, and because we're the only country in Europe not to use scientific age assessment, enforcement. Anyone that's probably under 25 will get away with that. They'll make a modern slavery claim. They'll make a human rights claim. They'll make all kinds of spurious legal claims to try and avoid getting sent to France. So I think this scheme will get mired in legal difficulty, and to be honest, I don't think it's going to work.
Just finally, can I ask you about the Rwanda scheme, though, because we spent 750 million quid of taxpayers' money, my audience's hard-earned money, on refurbishing some buildings, some accommodation for supposedly a couple of hundred of our illegal migrants to be taken to Rwanda to be assessed and possibly live there. We now found out that Donald Trump is going to be sending some of his deported illegal migrants to Rwanda, and guess what? Accommodation they found. Oh, the stuff that we have funded. What's your reaction to that?
Well, it just makes me appalled to hear that Keir Starmer threw away all the work we'd done, the money we'd spent to set the scheme up, which I think was money well spent, because we're spending billions on asylum hotels. So spending a few hundred million to run the Rwanda scheme, which did not have a numerical cap, was actually good value for money, because if you can spend a few hundred million and stop a problem which is costing billions every year, that is good value for money. Donald Trump is now doing the smart thing and using that accommodation. He's going to show how it can work. And it just demonstrates that Keir Starmer made an appalling decision last July when he cancelled the Rwanda scheme. Okay. And now Donald Trump is very cleverly taking advantage of that. So Keir Starmer today has egg on his face because he cancelled a scheme that would have worked. And now the Americans are going to use it instead. Chris Philp, Shadow Home Secretary, on the phone, live from the channel. Very much appreciate that. Thanks for getting you back on the line. Claire Pissell, just the thing that sticks in my mind most about that is so here are all the migrants. Could we please have the 50
can we have the life
jackets back for the next lot?
I think you were right.
We're going to escort over. I mean, sorry, but if I had enough hair to tear out, I would be tearing it out right now.
But I think you're right. I think you should say to the French, yeah, you can have the life jackets back, but they come with a body in it. You must take that individual
Take the migrant back. Absolutely.
But yeah, that's the French for you, sitting there watching them cross the 12-mile mark.